As entrepreneurs, there's a reason why we decided to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to tell the stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. On today's podcast, I'm speaking with Lillian Brummet. So, Lily, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Love to dig in a little bit deeper about your entrepreneurial journey, as well as what you're doing with your media group, YouTube channels, your blog that you've had for a cajillion years. I really want to hear all about that today. But first, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I love your podcast. You have such phenomenal content, and I really enjoy listening to it. So it's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's one of the goals of the podcast and what I love to do. And one of my missions is go out and just give it as much content as I can so that people can understand, like I did about almost a decade ago, understanding that entrepreneurs think differently and what that thinking differently looks like and what it is that we do that is divergent from the standard 9 to 5 world. I think a lot of times we grow up with parents who are very much in that 9 to 5 world. You go to school, you get a degree, you go get a job, you retire after X number of years, and you do this thing. And it worked for them. As long as it worked for them, it's cool. But there's some of us who think differently. And so I guess let's start off a little bit on this direction. And first of all, um, let's start off with what you do, because you've got your hands in a bunch of different things, and we heard in the intro kind of your bio and what your husband being a drummer and that. But I always like to hear the entrepreneur themselves say what that specific thing they do, and then we'll dig into how you got there.
Okay, well, I love this question. So, Brummet Media Group, we chose that name because we didn't want to choose something too terribly specific because, like you say, we have a lot of fingers in a lot of different pies, and we have a lot of plans for the future that we were aiming for. All of this is going to converge into our future plan.
Mhm.
So we have it in two different sections. Dave's music. So
Mhm.
he has a drum studio where he teaches mostly adult students, performing drummers, helping them refine their performance, helping them learn the song that they're trying to learn, figure out what they're doing wrong at their set, because why is their shoulder hurting all of a sudden? Maybe they're doing something wrong, maybe their setup is wrong. So he helps them up with a lot of different things. He also does like repairs. So people from like Florida and Alaska will send their instruments down here to BC, Canada, and will repair all up and down the coast instruments for people, mostly percussion instruments, but we've had a few other types of instruments. Like we had a banjo come to us, an antique banjo that he repaired because it required a drum head like
Okay.
skin over top of the frame. And so he's done all kinds of stuff. One of the things that he really likes doing is through the Drum It Forward project. That's his like personal fulfillment thing. He donates his time every once in a while when he has enough of accumulated parts and pieces and bits and what have you. And he'll go into schools and music programs and music outlets and senior choirs and what have you. And he'll go in and he'll go through their closets. He'll
Mhm.
figure out what kind of broken bits and pieces they have, and he'll put it together into a playable, workable instrument, a brand new timbale set or something that they didn't even know that they had sitting in the cupboard, kind
Mhm.
of thing. So he really enjoys doing that, bringing instruments to life and bringing to the point of being played.
Mhm.
So aside from that, from his students and his repairs, we have our writing, and our writing is a huge part of the business. Started out as a freelance writer, ended up in some staff positions, did some stints, like 6 and 7 year stints as like product and book reviewer at paid positions. And slowly, as we developed more confidence, we became more of the self-published.
Mhm.
We started out in the traditional publishing with our very first few books. And then later we delved into, as we grew confidence, into self publishing. So we now have 7 self published books on Amazon, ranging in the realms of like we have a poetry series, we have a marketing series, we have a family memoir, we have a cookbook. There's a variety of different things out there, mostly nonfiction. But in the upcoming couple of years, we have some fictions that are becoming out, which I'm really excited to delve further into. So we have lots of different things going on. To support all of that, we have our 2 blogs and our YouTube channel that we're working diligently to keep up with everything.
Mhm. And your blog's been around for about what, 20 years at this point. So it's
20
there's a lot of
years.
content in that. I don't think I've
Yeah,
come across
20
any
years.
blogs
Like
or things at 20 years. Yeah.
when we first started out, it was a daily blog. For the first 18 years, every single day, there was new content on that blog. Just recently, the last couple of years, I've slowed that down. I'm getting older now. No, I slowed that down, and I've decided to do publications every 3 to 4 days. 3 days typically. Sometimes there's 3 to 4 days, but I try to keep it to that rather than every single day trying to fill all that content. That just involved too much of my time
Mhm.
to manage that among everything else. As much as it's my greatest love, I love running that blog. So.
I love it. And that's one of the things with blogs is, nowadays we think, ChatGPT writes everything, the level of blogs that you're doing is much different. And
Mhm.
that takes a lot of energy to write that much content. That's not even if you love doing it, there's a lot of
Mhm.
energy that goes into it. And it's not, so it's not as easy as people think it is.
It's not, but it is a great networking tool. You and I were talking
Mhm.
about this behind the
Yeah.
scenes, in that, having the blog allows me to invite my contacts to come in, and the people I haven't met yet to come in. And maybe, we can exchange some type of coverage. Maybe they can be featured on the blog and I can be featured on the podcast. Maybe I can mention them, they can mention me. There's things that we can do, that we can network with our contacts over a really long period of time. I have network contacts going back couple decades,
Mhm.
and it's because we keep coming up with something new. Over the last few years, we've opened up our interviews beyond author and publishing and publicist type interviews to also entrepreneurs and musicians and retailers and people out there that are working really hard to make the world a better place, like nonprofit organizations. They'll come in and they'll have an interview with us where we share what they're doing and highlighting their activities. But the great thing about that is they're offering all kinds of tips, right? How they're
Mhm.
going about doing it, what apps they're using, what tools they're using, their favorite resources, some of the struggles that they've overcome, in hopes of our audience being able to learn from that.
That's interesting. And for those that might want to know that the links to the blog and everything else, including Dave's Facebook and everything else, will end up in the show notes, so you guys can click on it and take a little bit more, look at a little bit thing. Amazon links will be in there as well, so that way you can take a look at the books, both US and Canada Amazon links. But so with that much content, what is the content? What does it involve? So you said some entrepreneur people can go in and ask questions about it, but specifically, what sort of blog posts do you do? With 20 years worth of history almost daily, that's a lot.
Mhm.
Like what topics
Yeah,
do you float around?
I have quite a few regular type of posts. So I have like quote of the day. They come out every 8 to 10 days. I have poetry time. I can't even get that poetry time. And that is, I'm featuring either mine or somebody else's poem or poetry. Sometimes it's more than one poem. I'll
Mm.
do that once or twice a month. I have interviews coming out at least every 10 days. I'll have a new interview being published with someone. We have articles of our own and articles from other people that are being submitted, announcements to events, like, maybe there's a nonprofit doing, like just recently we announced the National Wildlife Federation's photography contest or something like that. So we'll give a heads up, a shout out to nonprofit activities as well. So there's a lot of different content there. The main focus of the blog, though, is to encourage positive, proactive, conscious behavior. So we're trying to make people more aware of their ability to create positive change. We want them to be conscious that every single moment they're having an impact, and that it's up to them to make the decision of what that impact is going to be. And then we help them with that choice by giving them those tools and the resources to get there.
Interesting. That's fun. That sounds like an amazing community. So again, if people want to sign up, they can go to the show notes and be able to become a part of the community. But so I'd like to kind of rewind here a little bit and go back to how did you get started? So the first thing I'd like to hear is what was the story, the origin story behind Brummet Media Group?
Okay, so back in the day, before I was running a different business, I was an entrepreneur since early 20s.
Oh,
I had been on my own since I was 13. I had been working and paying my own rent and going to school during that time frame.
Mm.
I put myself through college. I had been working for others and saw and felt what it was like to be an employee. And
Mm.
I wanted to be on the other side of that. And so I started my own business when I was just past 20, I think it was 21-ish, I'm going to say around. And that's it lasted for about 6 years. And I was just getting to the point where instead of being a solopreneur, I was starting to hire staff. I was starting to get some time where I could, be in the office, maybe have a couple hours of the day to myself. And I was thinking, this is great. I want to do more of this. I want to hire more staff, be more behind the scenes of
Mm.
running the business. And I got involved in a 3-car pileup. So
Mm.
I was in the middle. So someone had stopped in front of me, a big truck straight off the lot. He wasn't watching where he was going, brand new truck, big Ram truck, the ones, the double wheels. And he ran right into me and I into her. So it rode off my car and it put me in my van, and it put me in physiotherapy full time for a year. What I mean full time is like 4, sometimes 5 hours of different types of therapy, 5 days a week, every single week for a year, and then part time after that for quite a couple of years after that. And so that threw me into this horrible, dark time of deep, deep depression, not wanting to go on, not feeling like any of my efforts. Why did I go through what I went through, survived what I did, work so hard, to keep my head above water and do all the shoulds, and only to have it just ripped away from me. So I felt defeated and I felt overwhelmed. And right about that time, my husband, who had been teaching and doing some drum repairs, like as like a working hobby outside of his day job, he was thinking about maybe developing that further. He just took a writing course, just started taking this writing course that was about the business side of writing, not how to write a certain genre, but more like, how do you manage your office? How do you manage your queries? What's the process? How do you manage your taxes? What's the operations? What's your contingency plans? What kind of legalities are you going to be looking at? All that kind of stuff. How do you be a writer from
Mhm.
behind the scenes? And so he was taking that course. Well, I started taking it with him, sort of, like as a side student, an unpaid student. And I started doing the assignments right along with him. And then one of the assignments was send in your article and see if you can get it picked up. And if you can get it picked up, maybe you can turn it into a series. My very first article that I submitted was of the trash talk genre. Trash talk is one of our books. It's about reducing waste, realizing that your efforts really do have a measurable impact, and encouraging people that way with positive information rather than doom and gloom.
Mhm.
And so that's where we started. And that column got picked up internationally. It ran for about 7 or 8 years before biweekly, before it developed into the first book, and now it's a 2-book series that's available on Amazon. And it just developed from there. We started with traditional publishers. We moved on eventually as we gained confidence into self-publishing our own stuff.
Mhm.
Initially, when you're first starting out as a writer, you sometimes need that traditional help because they know how to design the book covers, they know how to do the formatting, they know how to get with the distribution, all of
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. As you get more comfortable in the world of writing and in with publishing books, you've developed some skills and some understanding, then you can start branching out on your own. I wouldn't suggest that somebody who's never published a book to run out and self-publish. You may want to get some professional help on your first time or two.
Okay. So and I think it's probably a very different world now than it was when, you first started, where we have Amazon,
Mm.
a lot of different ways people think that they can go out and just like, because Amazon Kindle publishing is one part where they've got on-demand publishing. They can order a couple of books and do it that way, or, then go out to Fiverr and create a book, cover and have somebody do it there for like $15. Is that really a viable way to do? Is that a viable way to do it, or is it just really honestly better to go with somebody who knows what they're doing first, then try to do that later?
Fiverr can be a resource, but you have to be very, very careful there.
Mhm.
Getcovers.com is a really great place to go. It
Yeah.
supports the UK book cover artists there, and they do it for a reduced price because of that.
Hmm.
You can also sometimes get covers that book cover designers have produced and no one has purchased yet.
Hmm.
They're like samples and they've put them on for like a reduced price or something like that. So you can look at doing that and they'll tweak them according to what you want as well. So that those are some options to save money when you're doing your book covers. As in regards to outsourcing, I'm lucky enough to have a husband who's talented that way, so he does it for us.
Excellent.
But yeah, that's excellent. But yeah, when it comes to self-publishing on Amazon or anywhere else, whether you're doing, vanity or subsidized or any other type of publishing that's out there for individuals, when you're going into that, you have to kind of look at what is my end goal with this book? Am I publishing this as a personal legacy fulfillment? And I really just want to use it as a fundraiser for this nonprofit event, this one time. Or maybe I want to use it to just as a gift to my family members because I want a published hard copy that my family members can have. Well, that's a great reason to get on Amazon and get your self-publishing done because, it's instant, it's easy, it's very frugal to do, and you're just getting your few copies, and that's all you want. If you want to take this to the next level where you're going to be like marketing this book and trying to sell this book outside of your current circles, well, then you have to put on your professional hat, and look at it more from an entrepreneurship angle. Neither is wrong. Neither is, congratulations on getting your book out there. I mean, that's an amazing feat. So, I mean, we want to encourage that. Especially your first couple books, just get them out and start publishing. But eventually, if you're going to be a professional writer, you got to get that entrepreneur hat on.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason I wanted to ask the question is a lot of people do start with, hey, I'm just going to do this on Amazon. Hey, I'm just going to do it this way just to get the book out. A lot of the folks in the world that I run in don't publish a book to make money. They just figure it's going to be a sunk cost for them. They do it for authority. And so it's not like writing a novel where you're going to go out and sell it and market it. It's more, I'm just creating this thing. And so they often think, let's go to Amazon first because Amazon is very reasonable as far as their pricing is concerned from the publishing side of things. But I figured I wanted to ask that question just so you could kind of, highlight a little bit more about that. So yeah, having published,
You're right.
now almost 8 books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
speakers will often do that too, as you
Yeah.
say, for authority, right? They'll
Yeah.
publish a book, and then once they have a book, it's easier for them to get speaking gigs. It's
Yes.
like a thing that you kind of have to have on your resume in order to get those speaking gigs. So you're right. There's a lot of reasons behind getting a book out there.
Yeah. One of my mentors he just published number 20,
Oh.
20th book. And it's a thing where, there's a huge industry behind books.
Yeah, yes.
For a lot of reasons, whether it's, publishing something for a legacy, publishing something for authority, they're a good marketing tool. But and especially you with at this point, it would have been 10 books at this point that you've published. So yeah. Now I want you to go into a little bit. We were talking about your Purple Snowflake book series. I want you to go into a little bit more about that if you would. I want to hear.
Yeah, this book here, woo, this is our that's the first book in the series, and it just got updated last year. So this is not a small book. This is a book that you're going to be reading and you're
Yeah.
going to be understanding how to run your business. So it starts at the very beginning. It tells you about the reality of the business, and then it walks you through some of the steps that you really need to do. A lot of people out there are like, oh no, I have to do this and it seems so awful. It's really not that big a deal. It's really just sitting down, putting your thinking cap on, putting it on paper, on computer, and figuring out the details. So we'll walk you through, okay, this is what a business plan involves. Do you have your operations in place? Operations are like, if I'm going to be selling my product from my home and I need to package it for shipping, where am I going to do that packaging? Do I have the supplies? Do I have a table to do that packaging on? The logistics. How are you going to do your business? Is it set up for it? The other part of it, you're going to be looking at like your contingency plan. If something goes wrong, what's going to happen? So that's what happened to me. I lost my business when I got into the car accident because I didn't have a contingency plan or a succession plan. A succession plan, if I become an invalid, if I pass on, what happens to the products that I've put out there? If I have books, who gets those royalties? This is your succession plan. So these are the things that you need to consider for your business. And then we walk you through the taxes. We show you how to save money. how to manage your taxes, how to manipulate it so that you can, fit in really well that way. Also, we walk you through like how to save money with your advertising, what kind of wording you can use,
Mhm.
where to look for discounts, where your best options are going to be. We teach you about like, watch your stats, like your return on your investment and your basic information to walk you through the career of being an entrepreneur. Whether you've got a book or a widget that you're selling or a service or a speaker, this book really applies to that.
Mhm.
However, it's angled towards authors.
Mhm.
So, when you go in there, it'll be mostly for books, but really it's any entrepreneur can benefit from this book. And it walks them right through the whole process of how to get media coverage, what to do after you've gotten your media coverage, all of that. It's a full guide for the marketing. The second book is going to be a little more advanced.
Mhm.
So what we have for this book is more like the next step. Okay, you've done the basics. You've got your socials up. You've done your basics.
Mhm.
Now that you've worn out, you've gone through all your contacts, all your local networks, all your ideas, you're starting to wear thin, you're wondering what next. That's where the next step comes in. And we start walking you through, okay, well, how do you broaden your audience? How do you go about various steps about like advertising online and ways of saving money and
Mhm.
reducing costs in that regard? So we walk them through the next step in that book. So we're really excited about that. It's one of our most popular books, in fact.
Interesting. So it's a handbook to how to start, geared more towards writing, but a handbook to start a business. I think that's amazing. I think that's great.
That's right. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. So talk to me a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Okay, YouTube channel is actually one of my great loves. It sort of replaces, I used to be a radio show host for
Yeah.
about 10 years, and I was also a podcast host for a few years. And I really enjoyed doing that, but I had to let that go because our focus was going in another direction.
Mhm.
Um, the YouTube channel sort of replaces that.
Huh.
One of the things that I really love, we have this one section where we allow people to send in their question. And it
Mhm.
could be a brand new author, it could be an established entrepreneur, it could be anyone in between. And so they'll send in a single question, and I'll create a short, 6 to 10 minute video answering that one question the best that I can for them. And
Mhm.
that's a really neat thing to do because it draws the audience in. They get to ask me the question. I'm definitely going to respond to it. They feel like they're a part of the show. And to me, I get to understand them better because they're submitting questions.
Uh,
So, I get, oh, you're interested in this. You have, you need to know more about this. So I'll put more attention on those kinds of topics, like on my blog or in my discussions and stuff too. So it's a great way of really getting in touch with my audience. But I love it there. We're actually going to we're in the process right now of updating that site. And so over the next year, you're going to see there's going to be 2 more playlists added over the next year, and we're also going to be releasing a huge number of videos that we have in our publication schedule, which I'm really excited about. So I hope people check it out. Just Brummet Media Channel on YouTube.
Absolutely. And there's going to be a link in the description too, so people can go check it out and go subscribe, like some things, take a look at the content. It's some amazing content on there.
Thank
Really,
you.
just really awesome content. Definitely, please check that out. So we're getting towards the end of things here, and there is one question that I ask every person. That it is, what is one book or podcast that you can recommend and give to the audience that has had a significant impact on your life, and you hope that they will get the same impact as well?
Okay. I can't remember the author's name, but
Okay.
the title of the book is Second Innocence.
Hmm.
And that book is a mindset genre nonfiction book. So there's a story in that book that has stuck with me forever.
Hmm.
And it's all about perception.
Hmm.
This fellow got, as a young person, he got a job at a place where he didn't want to be. It was
Hmm.
like the least desirable job that he felt he wanted to have that summer. And so he was grump, grump, grump all summer long. And then one day he went in and he had a different attitude. And he noticed this older lady was having a really difficult time. She obviously was a broken individual that day. And so he spent extra time for her, brightened her day, helped her through everything. She comes back the next day or so, and she says to him, that day was like the worst day of my life. My husband had died, and I had to send this stuff off because if I didn't, there were going to be repercussions. And I was in no place to send this off, and everything was confusing me. And you changed my day. You helped me through that, and it changed herself. And she appreciated so much. She had to reach out, tell him and his boss. From that moment on, every single person he came in contact with at that job for that summer, rest of that summer job, he put that effort into, because his entire view of that job had changed from poor me, this job sucks, to now I have an opportunity to change every person's life that I come in contact with just with that momentary interaction. How can I better their life? How can I make them smile before they leave? And his whole perception changed because of that one interaction, that one person's motivation to come in and express how they were feeling. Because if they didn't, he would have never known.
Yeah.
So now he, by expressing that, she changed his life right back. And I thought, what a powerful story that is. And every since I try to change my own mindset. I tend to fall into darkness. I get in depression. I get some darkness sometimes. And when I get there, I start thinking about that story and my perception of that situation. And I start pulling myself out of it because of it. It changed my life.
And I think that's one thing, especially as entrepreneurs, that darkness comes, and it's something that we just sort of deal with. And even though we hear it a lot, I think that's why there's so many mindset quotes and posts and things like that surrounding entrepreneurship is we need to be reminded consistently about that. No, there's something else going on here. We have a reason why we're doing things. And it sounds like he learned that in the book. So again, Lillian, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate all the wisdom you've dropped. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'd love to be a guest again in the future. So if you ever need a spot filled, you know who to call.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Lillian, check out the link in the description.